both The Guardian and The Observer reporting basically a global heat wave. It makes me wonder that people are still asking. Makes me wonder where they've been. This is your 2 MeV electron simulator. You can see that the whole outer shell is constantly filled with them, albeit a low level, but you can go back through all of the simulations in electrons. This one will always have them. Some of them go white and they go blank sometimes. And when the electrons surround our globe, our magnetosphere starts to light up. And I call your attention to the latest NOAA and Department of Commerce solar condition report. I call your attention to it because let's just see what it says. Let's just see what it says. I'll try to read quite quickly here. It says, the greater than 2 MeV electron flux is anticipated to continue at normal levels, and the greater than 10 MeV proton flux is expected to remain at background levels through the 17th and 19th of January. Okay, about 2 weeks ago, the 2 MeV flux for a matter of a month was at high to moderate. And for almost a year and a half, the 5 MeV flux and the 10 MeV flux were sometimes high to moderate. What else? What else has they got to say to you and me about the solar wind? They say the solar wind parameters were slightly enhanced, possibly due to a SSBC. Total field was slightly elevated. I wonder why they didn't say. I don't know what SSBC is. I've never seen it before on the report. Somebody can chime in. Total field was slightly elevated to a maximum of 10 nanoteslas, while the BZ component was mostly oriented northward. Oriented northward, it was freaking wrapping around the Earth. Solar wind speeds averaged near 380 kilometers a second for the most of the period, before increasing to a near 480 after 1100 UTC. Phi became variable and then oriented to a negative orientation after 700 UTC. A nominal solar wind regime is expected to dominate through 17 and 19. A nominal solar wind regime. What the hell is that? It's nominal, but it's going to dominate. That's kind of like a contradiction in itself. Nobody's using the word electrons, are they? The geomagnetic field was mostly quiet, with an isolated, unsettled period at the end of the day. Okay. So there's nothing going on, they say. The geomagnetic field is expected to remain mostly quiet, with the possible isolated, unsettled periods on 17 through 19. Due to what? Due to what? A SSBC? I have no idea what SSBC stands for. Well, here's your, you call this unsettled? Actually, those blue lines that are running vertical, they were actually moving backwards in the wrong direction, while our tail stream was tangled up worse than a fishing knot. And it came as a pulse. As you see, a giant pulse, and amazing pulse that's awfully similar to stuff I've been showing you now for what? Has it been, 3 months now? 4 months? Yeah, maybe even longer. And here are these pulses coming through, And you can see they're high speed, relatively. They disrupt the magnetic field. They blow apart the blue magnetic field lines. And there is some density changes on the right-hand side of the simulation, but nothing to to signal a ball coming through our tail stream. There's nothing really significant in front of the Earth, between the Earth and the Sun. That golden yellow pretty much stays golden yellow, but we see all kinds of stuff happening. And here's where the magnetic field lines were like wrapping around one another. The BZ complex pointed north. What the heck? You call that? It looks like planet Earth in a fetal position. And that's what it looks like. So completely messed up with no particles. You got that? Completely messed up with no particles. Or very few particles. And they call this unsettled, I guess. But it's been unsettled constantly for months. And the only time it looks normal is when a coronal hole stream comes through and kind of straightens everything out. But those balls, those spiraling balls, are electrons. Where are they coming from? Why are they here? Why isn't anybody telling you about them? Why aren't they talking about it and never talking about it in the solar wind report? It's a pulsation. And if you look at when these pulsate, they're pulsating at near regular intervals. So, where are these electrons coming from? And when you look really close at the 2 MeV, excuse me, when you look really close at the 2 MeV electrons, when you look at them, you're like, well, they're everywhere. But look at those rings that go inside geosynchronous orbit. That dotted line is geosynchronous orbit. Okay, and those rings that you see are like right over your head. The magnetosphere in this is actually compressed. It's supposed to be out by 10 Earth radii. It's only about down to, says, but 6 Earth radii is where the geosynchronous orbits are, and that's the dotted line. So this thing's looks like it's about 7 Earth radii compressed. It's supposed to be at around 14. So that's kind of strange, but you see the intricate circles, the rings being formed on the inside. How I gotta say, inside the geosynchronous orbit of our satellites. And there's other electron fluxes associated with solar electrons, but without any coronal hole streams coming through. Where are they coming from? They're coming from a brown dwarf directly. They absolutely are coming directly from a brown dwarf, and it takes a coronal hole stream or a CME to clear these electrons out of our magnetosphere and actually get rid of this radiation that they're creating. What kind of radiation? All kinds of radiation. And there's a more in-depth analysis on our Patreon site. And I want to say this, you know, it's been really nice not to be on YouTube. I just have to say that. There's been no harassment, there's been no organized trolling. The disinformation is very it's there, but you know, if you don't subscribe to somebody's channel, you're not going to see the disinformation. So the trolls don't come a yanking, and we can answer every question that you ask if you just ask questions. There'll be nobody trolling you. So a lot of people complain that they don't have money, that they can't afford $5 a month for a subscription. I don't know what my time's worth, but thousands and thousands of hours put into this channel are worth something. And the research that you see, you're not going to see it anywhere else. You haven't seen it anywhere else. Therefore, if I go away, you'll never see it again. So what we did for us broke people, we put a $2 tier into the tier system so you can subscribe and get into the channel. What we'll do is we have a video platform that takes forever to publish videos, and what we'll do is we'll send copies of everything we put on Patreon over to that site. They do censor by not publishing. They let you load it up and they let you keep it on your channel. They may hold it for 3 weeks before they approve it. So they scrutinize everything really well. But if you subscribe on a $2 subscription to the Higher Truth Rises, what happens is we give you a password to that channel, to that platform. So you get to go in as if it's your channel. And you could delete my videos if you wanted to. You could change the settings. You could, but it'll be monitored daily. And it will keep track of the IP addresses that log in there. And anybody does any funny business, we'll just change the password. We'll block them from Patreon and resend you the password in your Patreon email. That way you can get to this important data that we're showing. Our magnetosphere is messed up, but yet there's no particles. So how does that happen? Well, it's really probably because we're in our magnetosphere is finally in contact with the brown dwarf. That means it's pretty darn close. And the earthquakes aren't ceasing. We're still having strings of earthquakes. There doesn't seem to be any real set pattern. That means there's something getting close, or we don't even need alignments to affect our plates. And hopefully it'll get out of here before it aligns with Jupiter or Venus and causes, anything 8.9, 9.0. But somehow the information has got to get to you. And because it's important, it's life-saving information.